We collaborate together to bring these events to you, and we really value your feedback. So inside your programs, you'll find an evaluation card. And if you could take some time after the program to fill that out for us, it really helps us to make sure we're making the biggest impact we can on our community. So it's very helpful, and we appreciate that. Just a few housekeeping items. The restrooms are located outside the sanctuary and down the hall to the left. Feel free to exit as you need during the event. Afterwards, we'll invite you to join us. We are going to have some refreshments and a little time to meet and greet and visit with Jan. Jan has also brought some of her materials, books and cards, and they are for sale outside of the table. So do stop by there and check out that. The volunteers. I'd like to thank all of our volunteers from Center for Faith Studies. They're walking around with the name tags and blue ribbons. Without them, we could not put this together. They help us through thick and thin when things get crazy. So thank you very much to our Center for Faith Studies volunteers. And now I'm going to ask Debbie Sheehan to come to the stage. Debbie is a friend of Center for Faith Studies, and it was because of her that we were able to bring Jan to us this evening. So we do owe this evening to her. And she's going to say a few words.
Thank you. I'm going to say very few words because I want to leave most of the time for Jan. I had read Jan's books over the years, and about a year and a half ago, I had the privilege of being at a conference where I had her speak. And so I knew pretty quickly that she was somebody I really thought should come and bless Omaha. So when I got back, I thought about, now how shall we do this? And I approached Kelly Keller, who was then the director at Center for Faith Studies, and what you're going to experience tonight and the retreat that's offered tomorrow and Saturday is the fruit of our discussions about bringing Jan to Omaha. Jan has, she just has a delightful, very real presence, and I think you will agree with that by the time we're finished tonight. You, as Courtney said, you may want to check out her materials at the end for further inspiration. So without further ado, I'm going to have Jan come forward. Thank you.
So, this is what it looks like. I love being here because I love being in the heartland. And I am so proud of this community for participating in that tri-faith experiment that's going to change the culture of this country by modeling proper behavior at these times. As for me and tonight, I want to first let you know that I consider it part of my job to cause a little bit of discomfort because I'm trying to bring your thoughts to their horizon, to see where your edges are and where you will go and go no further. And that doesn't, as my brother used to say when I beat him up, that doesn't tickle. Tony DeMello was a brilliant retreat director from India. And he always said, the best thing you can do for your friends is to challenge their thoughts. Well, it might be the best thing you can do, but it doesn't make you popular. So I have ended up, my spiritual path has been quite bumpy with a lot of detours. And so I've ended up with a faith that looks unlike most people that I know. And so I'm going to share some of those experiences with you tonight. But this talk is really about, well, it's called All Are Called, All Are Chosen. Because, you know, we grew up with the phrase, we always heard it, all are called, few are chosen, but no one ever could figure out what that meant. And I think it was a way for us to get off the hook. because definitely if I'm not chosen, you do it. And I was raised Catholic, so of course being chosen meant you probably had a vocation, that you were called by God to dedicate your life to a religious life. And so that became part of my journey as well. But what I've come to believe is true is that we have all inherited a mythology that doesn't necessarily work well for these times, and that we've grown up with the concept of God that is not working for everybody in these seats. And yet our language remains the same. We talk about God as if God is Geppetto up there with all these strings, and we send our signals to him, and he will pull strings for us and fix this and that. Prayers, 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 right? I don't know if you saw that newscast the other day, but Don Lemon had a little segment where he called it Thoughts and Prayers, and he showed everybody's tweets after the Texas slaughter in the church, and all these politicians sending love and prayers, sending love and prayers, sending love and prayers. And he said, all well and good, but it's time for us to go further now, to really be agents of change in the matter, so that we actually are surprised when this happens in our midst, because it doesn't just get assimilated into our expectations. So I'm going to be a bit of a rabble-rouser here, because I'm deconstructing. I'm trying to deconstruct and give us new images and new ways to think of ourselves, because I think that it's true. Jesus is our model, our master teacher. He wanted to be the example, not the exception. And he said that over and over again. If you see me do it, you can do it too. Just follow me, take it, do this in my memory, do this when I'm gone, keep these traditions. And yet we abdicate that power. So for me tonight, in any way I can, through as many arts as I can, because I'm a photographer, I'm a singer, so I'm going to sing to you tonight. I'm going to show you photographs tonight. We're going to hear sounds tonight that I'm just hoping will cause us to open our minds to imagine a different, bigger possibility for us to enter into as a people of faith. That we accept and acknowledge we're part of the great divine creation, that we're the continuation of that manifest love in the world. And though God, the divine, the source, may be the wave, we're the particles of that same energy. So no distinction, right? So for us to step into that role and acknowledge our own sacredness and quit calling out and call to each other and call to ourselves. So it's kind of a formation program for us to become the mystics we're here to be and the prophets that we're here to be. So I believe that's possible, because what makes a mystic is simply an unmediated encounter with the great beloved. And it happens regularly, and it happens with commitment, and it happens in the midst of deep mystery. but any one of you here who has that kind of spiritual practice wherein you feel the oneness, that it's right here. It's right here. It's in the breath I'm breathing. That's the thing. I don't have to seek anymore. I'm not seeking. There's nothing to seek for me, nowhere to go, because it's right here. This is it. The kingdom of heaven is all around us. So we're going to first look at a video that Steve back there. They have such an amazing staff here. Everywhere you look, there's somebody there to help you. So Steve's in the back, and he's going to like press the button go as soon as I say. This video is a video called Think of Yourself. And it's my way as an artist to express what I feel deeply inside myself about what may be true. So are we ready to go? I'll sit down. Yeah, we are.
Think of yourself as a thought of the Infinite One, made flesh by your sheer desire to see and be seen. Think of yourself as nature, looking upon nature, in awe at its grandeur, in tears for its wounds, nature loving itself, healing itself, speaking out for itself. Think of yourself as a vessel of stardust and clay, a child of the cosmos, transforming energy into matter, wave into particle, mortal into immortal. Think of yourself as a soul who took on a body to be of use, to radiate love and receive it in return. Think of yourself as necessary, purposeful. Remember that you came here to light the world. Think of yourself as a shaman whose hands heal whatever they touch, as a storyteller whose words fall like rain on a drought-stricken land, whose stories are medicine, miracles that heal the sick and raise the dead. Think of yourself as a circle holding yin and yang, as unity cradling the dualities in your arms. Think of yourself as a thought leaning toward radiance, an early dawn rising into daylight. Deep inside you, the fire of creation burns day and night. Atoms forged from the Big Bang spin and swirl in your blood and bones, your lungs and your legs. Like salt in the tear, joy in the laughter, the Holy One is in you, being scattered like seeds across the land as you speak and write and reach out to touch. You are the hands and feet, the eyes and ears of the great beloved. You are the one we are waiting for. Your stories are the ones we are waiting to hear. It is time now for each of us to speak, to say what happened and what we learned. To reveal ourselves is to heal ourselves, and to heal ourselves is to heal each other and the world entire. From our revelations of intimacy and truthfulness, vulnerability and generosity, the future takes shape and enters into us, our words made flesh, our thoughts made real. Yes, think of yourself as a creator. The peace you desire, the justice you cry out for, these will come as we speak them into being. As the cosmos is being created by the mind of the Infinite One, this world is being created by the minds of the finite ones, by us. Let us be mindful and full of care for the words we speak, the thoughts we think, the stories we tell, for these are the tools with which we build tomorrow.
So the good news is, this one mystic, Meister Eckhart, says, the process of enlightenment, or the process of finding God, is a process of subtraction, not addition. So it's not a matter of you needing to know anything more. You don't need to read another book, except for mine out there, which you'll be buying later. None of us need any more books. Every one of us has exactly what we need to have right now to be that force and to be that powerful, passionate change agent in the world. And that lives, that intelligence really lives in our stories. So if you were only to look back and to remember those experiences that you can't forget, every one of those holds within it some jewel for you and for the rest of us. So our job is to harvest that wisdom by looking at that story, by exploring the turbulence that gave it the conflict that's necessary for the story. I heard Joyce Carol Oates talked on stage a while back, and she says, 3 kind people on a stage does not a play make. There always has to be the drama, the narrative arc, and we all know we survived high school, we all know from Shakespeare that there has to be a conflict in order for something to occur. There has to be resistance for us to leave a thumbprint. And so the soul invites to itself, which is the body, the soul invites big adventure. In the soul's language, there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. It's like, bring me experience. Bring me adventure. And then it comes. And we call it tragedy. And we call it trauma. And we bear it. And we do therapy. And we weep and wail. But it's that experience that gives us the thing we are seeking. That's the only way we get it. So I'll tell you 2 or 3 stories in the next short while here to show you how that works. And the first one is that I live in Southern California in San Diego. I was wrestling with a very, very monumental issue, which I could not resolve in my life. My partner had become an alcoholic. And I didn't know how to deal with it. I have like 3 years of denial, 2 more years of I can fix this, and then total, utter failure as her disease progresses. So I decided to take myself for 3 days and 3 nights to Death Valley. It sounded very biblical, doesn't it? 3 days and in August, no less, which is a crime against nature. I'll tell you, never, ever do that. So I have a little Subaru Outback wagon. I'm going to sleep in the back. Social activists never have much discretionary income, so I didn't even look for hotels. I just sleep in the back of my car. I'm fasting, I'm not drinking, so no problem. Get to Death Valley, it's 112 degrees. Before the first day is over, I'm drinking margaritas in the closest hotel I can find. So that plan went awry. So I don't know if it works to go 3 days and do a fast in the desert, because I failed at it. But I'm on my way home, and I have my video camera and my still camera here, because there's always things happening. I looked up in the sky, and there is a murmuration, they call them. I hear that's the word. A collection of birds, hundreds and hundreds of birds, all flying together. The amazing thing was, when I first looked, they were white, and then they all shifted at once and they turned silver. They shifted again and they turned black. And this just color changes was unbelievable. So I said, I have to get that on video. So I pull my car off into the breakdown lane, and then I lean up against the hood of the car to steady myself, and I'm videotaping the birds when I hear, briefly, this sound of metal on metal, and then everything went silent. What had happened was a guy who was driving an Econoline van behind me didn't realize I had stopped and pulled over. He had just given himself a shot of insulin. He was, what's the disease you have? Diabetic, I think. So his perceptions were off, and he was going 75, and he hit my car. So my body came back and broke the windshield, and then the car and me take off into the field. And the only visual I had was I saw 3 things flying. One was my video camera, one was my body, and one was my car. I saw those 3 things in midair, and then total black, total silence, absolute nothingness. And then I'm, of course, unconscious. I have no idea how long I'm unconscious, but when I wake up, I'm sprawled out like as if on a crucifix, only on the ground underneath my car. And my first thought was, uh-oh, Christopher Reeves, the first person came to mind, right? So I thought, oh man, terrible. I hope I might be paralyzed. So I tried to move my toes, and I could move my toes and feel my feet. So then I'm like all in a good mood again. I go, okay, all I gotta do is like shimmy out of here. So I just start to shimmy out, but what happened next is I learned that I'm impaled underneath the muffler of my car. So I am getting 3rd-degree burns all along my back and my hip. Which the good news is you do not feel 3rd-degree burns because all your nerves are gone. So I couldn't shimmy out because I'm impaled. So now I think, oh man, I have to dig myself out of here. So I start to dig, but this is how successful my digging was because it's such hard, high desert land. I couldn't even make an indentation. So then I realized that I was about to die. and I started getting nervous. And then there's two voices in my head, the nervous voice and the other voice. Some teacher you are, some spiritual master you are, you scaredy cat. You know, what about all those elders? What about all those wise elders you've heard about who, when it's their time, the Eskimo elder will go out to the snowbank and just lay his body down and release and surrender. And the Native Americans you've all heard about go up to the mountaintop and release and surrender, and the next you know, the eagles come and nature takes its course. What about that, you scaredy cat? So these voices are in dialogue with each other. And I said, okay, I could do that. So I prepare myself and took some time. I did deep breathing and everything, and it was like very weird, but I said, okay, here I come. Here I come. And the experience was I went out through the soles of my feet, and there was this little sound that goes whoosh, whoosh, little whoosh sound. So I'm out there. It was still all total void, black, silent, everything, but very peaceful, just beautiful, calm, nothing to worry about. I'm out here, and then I hear these two voices. Oh my God, is somebody there? Is somebody alive? And it's like this, whoosh, right back in. I go, I'm here, I'm alive. And these guys didn't know where are you? Where are you? I said, I'm here, I'm under the car. So I hear their feet, I look up, I see their little skinny legs, 4 legs. They say, wait there. Wait there, we'll go get help. All right, so wait for it. Here's the thing. Here's the moment. Out of this body comes this voice saying this sentence. You are the help. You are the help. Just lift up the car. We can't, it's too heavy. Just lift up the car. Next thing I know, the car gets lifted up as if it weighed like a feather. 2 hands come down, take my hands, pull me up, and I come up and stand. And then they go, quick, get her down. Then they put me down on the ground. But I got out. And then the ambulance comes, and that's another story. So what I learned from that experience is that we're all trained to think help is somewhere else. And that I had to yell it out to them twice before it occurred to them. Maybe we can lift it up, because at first they couldn't. And when they said, we can do this, they did it. And some kind of miracle, it feels like, happened. But the whole deal is, what has to happen for us to realize we're the help? We're the one that can walk on water if we believe enough. We're the one that can heal ourselves and each other. We're the ones. Anything you have seen me do, you can do, and more. So I didn't know that like I know that now. I hadn't really embodied that teaching in such a way that I was able to take on my own power, to become a more powerful agent in all matters, until I nearly died. So it happens often that the drama is big, but in every conflict, there's a lesson that's not just for me. The lesson is for all of us. But only it takes the multiplicity of us to get the whole message. So that's why I work towards the end of you harvesting your own life, because you have messages I need. And that, to me, is our spiritual work. It's not going up there anymore. It's going out here and in here to say, okay, what's happened to me? You know, I'm doing a spiritual memoir right now, and I can't get past age 25 because there's so much dang conflict. You know, it's just you have to keep entering in and entering in, because every conflict provides just such a cornucopia of wisdom. And it just is not, whoever told us this? No one ever told us this. So that's what my kind of goal is. You know, I do a lot of work with story and that. So I'm going to ask us to take some time to imagine, I'm asking you to imagine that because all of you, if I'm going to say you're all creative and you're going to say, I'm not creative, I can't draw a straight line, and I'm going to say, what do straight lines have to do with creativity? And it's difficult for you to perceive yourself as a creative person, because creativity has been presented to us in such a teeny tiny box that only lucky people who dress exotically and happen to paint fit into. And it's not us. So I have to undo. The process of enlightenment is a process of subtraction. So I have to undo that whole misguided feeling that we have about creativity, so that we can actually see how we have been creative. And so I'm going to have you talk to each other right now, but I'm going to request this. I'm going to say, tell your talking partner this, but I'm going to say, don't have your talking partner be somebody you're sleeping with. You get it? All right. So don't be talking to your husband or your wife or your spouse in any way, shape, or form. Find somebody, you know, you can be not your mother. Find somebody new. And here's the assignment. And there will be chaos, and chaos is good. And it won't take us long. You're just going to relocate if you need to, and if you don't, sit right there. The assignment is to acknowledge to your talking partner one thing that exists in this world that would not exist if you weren't alive. Therefore, it's your creation, right? So easy to say, oh, I made this book happen. I made those pictures happen. I'm not talking about that. It could be a recipe. It could be a garden. It could be a kid who's healed from something because you do a particular kind of therapy. It could be a happy kindergarten class. It could be a piece of music or a poem or a photograph on your refrigerator. This is not a hard assignment, but you're going to take responsibility for saying, this one thing is an example of my creation. Okay? Now, go ahead and, you know, I'm going to bring us back. I'm just going to say, all right, my turn to talk, and then stop talking. You must obey me. All right. So go find somebody, sit down, and acknowledge something that you have created. Not somebody you're working with. need a partner? Okay, I could be, the three of you can do it. You can do it. Okay. Are you done? Okay, wrap it up. All right, my turn to talk. That was very good. Very good. So well behaved here in Nebraska. You never get that on the coast. So, another thing that I learned once was I was making a peace pilgrimage around the world because somebody left a copy of this book called The 100th Monkey on my workbench when I was working a job as a picture framer in Syracuse, New York. And I read that book on my lunch hour, and it was this hypothetical story about this experiment that this group of scientists were doing on these monkeys off the coast of Japan. And the experiment was basically they throw a bushel of sweet potatoes down and watch the behavior of the monkeys. So long story short, the smaller baby monkeys, they all loved it and they ate it, but there was a lot of dirt involved. And so the smaller monkeys took it down to the stream, washed off the sweet potatoes, and it was just a more pleasant, clean, sanitary experience. And so the moms went down, watched, and the moms learned from the babies, and a whole cultural evolutionary leap was made in the whole tribe of monkeys, because shortly thereafter, every monkey on that island started washing off her own sweet potatoes before eating them. And then within 6 weeks, monkeys on all the neighboring islands had adapted that same behavior. So the point being, evolutionary change can happen once consciousness reaches a certain critical mass, and it doesn't always require language. So when I read that, I was so moved that I decided right away I was going to make a peace pilgrimage around the world. This is in 1982 and 3, Ronald Reagan, Star Wars. I'm a peace activist. I already had a slideshow on the peace movement in the US and Canada. So that was going to be my creative offering. And I just had to, take a year and a half to save up $5,000 so I could last, and then figure out how I was going to get people to put me up. So it so happened that I put an ad in Sojourners magazine, which is a progressive Christian kind of peace and justice oriented magazine. And they have a back page at that time called Connections. And I just said, feminist photographer going around the world on a peace pilgrimage looking for sojourner type people to stay with. That was the deal. So in a few weeks after that, I got in the mail from a man in Germany 13 pages on legal paper of annotated biographies of all these people I could stay with in Thailand and Egypt and Israel. And, here's a Palestinian lawyer who works with an Israeli guy, and da-da-da-da. And so it was just high-minded and just the right people, and so I had a lot of people to stay with. The first place I started, of course, was Japan, and I had heard of this guy, Father Oshida, who was a Catholic priest by training, but he was a social activist, and Catholics, he was just too loud for the Catholics and was trying to turn cathedrals in Tokyo into like places for the poor. Imagine. So they banished him up to the Japanese Alps and said to him, you'll be responsible for the seminarians. So he became famous. He's also Buddhist. He's a Japanese priest, but he also became Buddhist. And so I heard about him. The Dalai Lama had come and visited him, and I think Gandhi had been there visiting, and the people passed through there. And it was this Catholic priest that told me about him. And I said, I want to go there. And he was, you know, just poo-pooed it totally, like, you're nobody, you're nothing, you shouldn't go there. And I went anyway. I wrote or called Father Oshita, and I explained what I was doing, and he invited me to come up. So it's this little community up high in the Japanese Alps. There's 2 seminarians, and Father Oshita, and of course the 2 nuns who always take care of the priests from the Philippines, and me. And they had like a Buddhist library there, so I immersed myself all night long. I can't be sleeping in a room with books and sleep comfortably very easily. So I read everything, and in the day we work in the fields and harvest the wheat, and by night I read. And then at 5 in the morning, they ring a bell. There was this round chapel, I guess you'd call it, and everybody goes in at 5. They sit zazen, you know, with their legs crossed, terrible, uncomfortable for me, but sit on the floor. The first half hour was total silence, meditation. The next half hour we sang Gregorian chant together, oddly enough, which I loved. And then the next half hour, Father Oshita said Mass. He never moved from his pillow, but this all happened. We all got communion, and it was extraordinary. And then at night, he became a spiritual teacher, and we all sat around and asked him our questions. So now I am just out on a mission to, you know, do this peace pilgrimage, to create occasions for people to come together and reveal to each other through our stories, how is it that I'm making peace in the world? It wasn't lofty. And I'm not an educator. I didn't want to talk about how many cruise missiles and Pershing missiles we had. That's not my business. And so I was just localizing our sacred work. And so I became very distraught because it was my first introduction to Buddhism, and I felt as if I should convert because it made perfect sense. But I had a clash of faiths now, because all night I'm reading Buddhism, and it's like, yes, yes, yes. So I go to Father Oshita, I'm just in tears, and I say, Father, I don't know what to do. I just started out, you know, the Christian mandate is go and teach all nations. I just start out to be the Christian who does this good work, and now I'm reading the Buddhist, which says, sit down, shut up, and understand that everything's unfolding perfectly. I don't know how to put the 2 together. Please don't make me go home. And he was just delighted. And he basically said, you never choose between the 2. You do the both, always. You be the stillness. You are the stillness. And when the stillness is complete, then you are the action. It's the Buddha and then the Jesus, the Buddha and then the Jesus. So you combine them both and understand, he said, that you're an incarnation of the very thing that you're up to. You already embody that. So not to worry about the teachings, just to be sure, to be still enough, and then to have your action be coming from the stillness. So that helped me so much that I could proceed with my journey. And it helped me also to transcend the very dualities. You know, Thomas Merton tried to help us do that. And he died so young that his work was really unfinished. But he tried to bring that kind of wisdom from the East to our Christian thinking, which would have been the transcendence of the duality between East and West. But it never really got fully realized in any good way. Other Zen masters tried to come, and Alan Watts, and you know, there's been a lot of great Zen teachers, but not the kind of reverence, not the kind of background and rootedness that Thomas Merton had from his position. So I just feel like a great, wondrous thing happened for me that day, that I was able to comprehend and have it happen, to metamorphosize myself into a being that's equally committed to the East and the West, through whom East and West winds flow through. And so, you know, that I have become a spiritual practitioner means simply that I have a dedication to a spiritual practice, so that I know that spiritual practice isn't just a good idea. Spiritual practice so causes, I'm going to say us. It causes us to become other-like. It causes us to experience shifts in ourself. And so the veils and the borders that we formerly thought existed between me and the divine begin to dissolve. And that I can be breathing the divine as the divine breathes me. And so there's quite an amazing transformation that happens that's not, it's called the mystical traditions, but it's really losing oneself in the heart of the mystery that's possible for all of us. And it so influences our lives and causes the heavens to break open in our favor that I always insist, if you do not have a spiritual practice today, then start one tomorrow and you will fall in love with it. And it just means dedicate yourself to start with 5 minutes. It's just solitude and silence. You really will love it. It's solitude and silence. It's not having your puppy there. You know, it's not having your phone there. There's discipline to it now that was never required before because we're so seduced. But if you can dwell in that silence and solitude for 5 minutes, set your timer, whatever you need, you're going to soon feel like, oh, I'm moving it up to 8 minutes. Because magic happens in that time. And it's true also that once we commit to that practice, as they say, providence moves too in our favor and releases all manner of unforeseen things in our favor. So that involves a little bit of trust in the beginning, but it involves no trust and no faith for me now, because I have experienced it for so long that it's just my minimum daily requirement is 20 minutes. But if I have the chance to go longer, I choose it, and it's great. So that's the part of our faith and our becoming that powerful agent that would be thought of as the mystical part. Now, the mystic is the one who has the experience of unity, who completely comprehends the collision of heaven and earth. The mystics know that. The prophets are the ones that speak out when that unity is disrupted. When something occurs in the outer world that's not consistent with justice or with honor and dignity for human beings, the prophetic voices stand up and speak out against that. But prophets are rooted in mysticism. That's what gives prophetic people their power, their authority. It's that they're rooted in the ground of being. This is like all achievable. So to become that miracle worker, I'm going to say this, and I'll tell you why I say this, because I've had two experiences. This is the use of the word God. So the first experience I had about it was when I am driving. I had an RV after I had that near-death accident. I asked myself, my God, you lived. What did you want to do always that you didn't do because you lived, and now you should do it? And the answer was I wanted to be a female Charles Kuralt. So I bought the RV, and I went and interviewed, people for my pilot. I interviewed Neil Donna Walsh and Gene Houston and Paul Simon, who was a filmmaker who did Somewhere in Time and What Dreams May Come. Paul Ray, who wrote the Cultural Creatives. So I interviewed these people for my pilot, but I was bored with them. So I couldn't get excited enough, and I realized I don't want to be Bill Moyers, I want to be Joseph Campbell. That I'm the one who inspires me. So I had to figure out how to get myself on the stage, which I have done, obviously. So long story short, I'm in the RV, and I'm with two women friends from San Diego, and we're driving to a retreat I'm doing in Santa Fe called Divining the Body. And we just get barely out of San Diego when one of them, Jane, my artist friend, says, oh, by the way, I'm an atheist. I'm going, you're a what? She goes, I'm an atheist. I said, what in the hell are you coming to a workshop called Divining the Body for? You're going to be talking about God all over the place. She goes, I always have to put up with that. I go, but not in my workshop. This is my workshop. I can't have that going on if you're sitting there. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? She goes, don't worry about it. But it was my problem. I had a problem now. And so I didn't know what to do. Thank God we had an 8-hour drive. Thinking, we had to stop in Albuquerque Airport to pick up 3 women who had flown in from Ohio, the Bible Belt of Ohio. And so we're making them sandwiches, and we're sitting out and having lunch after they get off the airplane. And right away, they're like, well, there was a terrible storm on the way to the airport, but God stopped the storm just in time. And I'm like, oh, no. I look over at Jane and go, oh, no. I told you, and then another one says, well, God, had my daughter marry an alcoholic, but that was because of this and that. So, they just start talking about God like he's some kind of puppet master. And I'm horrified, because every time I hear the word God now, I'm thinking, oh, no, this is terrible. So anyway, we get to the Santa Fe. I didn't know what to do. It wasn't until I opened up the door to the workspace that it occurred to me. So we're in our seats. I say, okay, it was Thursday night. We're going to be there through Sunday. I said, there's only one rule for this weekend. And the rule is that you can say anything you want to say, but you can't use the word G-O-D. And they go, well, how are we going to talk? I said, you can say everything you mean to say, but you just have to figure out what you mean when you say that word and say that instead. So no abstract language. We can't be speaking conceptually. We have to be really, really grounded because this is called divining the body. So we have to figure out a way how to express the divine through the body, which means no referring out. All right, we'll try. You know, so the first day was God, this, that, terrible mistakes. But here's what I noticed. They improved really well. They did it really well. And by Sunday afternoon, when I looked over at a bunch of them having lunch, and it was as if they had become Amazon warriors. Something happened to those women, and they were stronger, braver, more powerful beings than they ever were when they first walked through the door. And I think it's because they became the agents in the matter. Because when you can't say that, and you have to figure out what you're trying to say, you start speaking as if from yourself, it's coming. As if from yourself, it's here. So that was one thing. The other story was, I'm invited to help a community of sisters up in Canada who have a province in Alberta, province in Nova Scotia, and they're have a little bit of war because one sister got elected president and this whole gang out here was unhappy. So the president invites me to come. We have our workshop in Nova Scotia, and then the two of us fly to Alberta, and I'm on deck to heal the rift. So we have until 5 o'clock, and we had 2 days. Progress was going along really well, but tiptoeing towards authenticity, because as some of you know, it's hard for some nuns to be authentic because there's a certain kind of nun talk. I know it because I was one till they kicked me out, and you know why. So anyway, we tiptoed towards truth-telling, and they're there, and they're beginning to acknowledge that it was hurt, it's not anger, I was just hurt. They're beginning to tell the deep, true things which would cause this whole rift to be sewn back together again. And then one little sister in the chair was tired. She goes, I don't know what we're spending all this time on this for, because it's all in God's hands anyways. And as soon as she said that, they gave up the fight. They gave up the willingness to continue. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. It's all in God's hands. Why work so hard? And they stopped working toward the solution. And the whole was like a balloon going crazy around the room because it lost its air. And at that point, I just said, I'm going to forbid the use of the word God in my workshops. Let them practice another way of being with each other. Let them practice trying being God instead of referring out, because we have to fix this one. If Jesus stood there and said, I and the Father are one, and he basically was trying to say, whatever I am, you are, whatever I can do, you can do, then what keeps that oneness from being true for us as well? That is not blasphemy. That's the hope of this cosmos, that we will accept and mature and evolve ourselves consciously back into the divinity, which is our source and our final ending. But we keep aborting that process by our talk of an imaginary deity out there who's going to fix something that we're not willing to fix ourselves. I have been dealing here with the LGBT community, and it's true that gay kids are 5 times more likely to commit suicide than regular, listen to me, regular kids. I'm writing suicide notes at age 12 because I can't figure out how not to hate myself because my church has so filled my head with stupid ideas about how wrong and what a sinner I am. When I'm a little Catholic girl that goes to daily mass and has statues lined up on her dresser. Something's wrong with our institutions that's causing these young kids to have thoughts of suicide and to actually do it to the extent that they're doing it. This is our problem. This is a faith issue. This is the need, the urgent times for us to get over with the stupid things the bishops are saying, the stupid things the churches are standing for, and get about the proper work of diversity, of love and respect, of dignity for the marginalized people. And that makes us the miracle workers. Because we're not, those people in leadership in their comfortable positions in the institutions that have been forged in what? Since the Middle Ages, some of these ideas. It's time for us to become the ones that do the healing. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's why I know I'm pushing us. Thank you. So, we get to sing a song. I'm going to sing a song, and it has a part for you at the end. The part for you at the end is simply the word Alleluia. The word Alleluia comes from the Hebrew, Allah-lu, which means to give praise and thanks. We know from science that the emotional state that causes our beings, our bodies, to be in their optimal mode of reception and response, the most optimal mode we can be in is the emotion of gratitude or appreciation. That gives us a leg up for all kinds of work in the world. So when we sing Alleluia, it puts us in the state of gratitude. So that's why we're singing this song tonight. The song itself is my love song to the divine, really. I wrote it while I was driving through Texas in a pickup truck. And I was writing it on a legal pad, and I nearly ended up in a few pastures. So I had to come up with a mnemonic device to help me remember my verses without writing over here. The mnemonic devices do it alphabetically. So I wrote all the verses A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's why it's called the Alphabet Mantra, which is a hot tip, because of course you're going to buy the CD tonight, and when you have it in your car, you're going to sing along and remember it's alphabetical. So I will sing, if we were queued up, Steve, I don't know, I will sing the song to you, and when your part comes up, you'll know, because it's at the very end. All right.
Like
so
the all in
the all in the oneness. Like the branch and the vine, like the call and the answer, like the drink and the wine, like the earth and the heavens, like the forest and trees, like the gate and the pathway, like the hawk and the breeze, like the iris and petals, like the jewel and the mine, like the known and the knowing, like the laugh and the line, like moonlight and darkness, like nowhere and near, like the oak and the acorn, like pain and tear, like the quest and the seeker, like rain and the flower, like the sea and the islands, like time and the hour, like union and yearning, like the vision and view, like waves and the water. So I am to you, so I am to you the love, and you are to me. We dwell in each other, like salt in the sea. Here it comes. Oh, hallelujah. Very good. Very beautiful. I think my time has come to an end because we must leave room for the questions that might be coming. If there are any.
What's your next big adventure?
Two things. One is I'm doing the spiritual memoir. That is a big adventure because that's exploring your turbulences from the point of view of being a co-creator of all the messes that one has encountered along the way. So that's my journey of learning right now. I'm also planning a river cruise through Vienna and Prague for my friends and anybody who wants to join us in 2019. So that's a journey that is just a celebration of come and be together with kindred spirits, have a good time, see these gorgeous things, be on a river cruise, and don't be alone. So that's another thing I'm planning. I think that's, you know, I do workshops all around the country. And I'm going to say now, if you can recall, that when you get home, go to janphillips.com and click that button that says, get me on her newsletter list. Because it's really like Paul to the Corinthians of the modern world. It's getting a letter from somebody who loves you and who says things to remind you of your own greatness and your own magnitude and urges you forward on your faithful journey to the light. So it's worth getting. It's fun, it's funky. So sign up for my newsletter, and then you'll always know what my next big thing is.
How do you know you're on the journey to the light, that evolutionary path? What are the signs?
Joy, bliss, only happiness, and only calm. Like, you know, I can watch the news, and I'll go, oh, I'll feel that. And then I will go, this is it. This is what's going on. This is my world where I get to work and be the light against this darkness. I never lose my ground, and I never cry too long. But I'm touched by it. It moves me deeply. I can't say I don't feel sorrow, but it doesn't stop me. So I think that is my evidence that I'm on the path. It's a good one.
When you meditate, what's the process? Do you think of something, or do you try not to think of something? Or?
Yeah, I don't try anything, but I light the candle. It's generally kind of dark. So I have the candle, which to me symbolizes the flame, the unpredictable, the mystery, that fire from the beginning of time. I try to imagine I'm post-theist, so I'm really intellectually giving up the notion of a personal deity out there. And I'm not saying everybody should, or that's a good way to go. I'm not saying it's just where I'm at on my evolutionary path. So what I try to do is, as I breathe in, imagine I'm breathing in that which I used to imagine was out there. That here it is, it's in this breath. This breath is it. This is the big bang of the matter. This is how close it is to me, and that it's in me as much as it's around me. And that I say anything that's not this one having these thoughts is the holy thing. That's what it feels like. I don't work at it. And I, of course, meander. You know, I'm thinking, what am I going to wear tonight when they're all in the church? You know, it happens. But you never give yourself a hard time. It's not like, darn it, stop that. It's just like, okay, back to my breath. It's never give yourself a hard time. Well, it's hard enough without us giving ourselves a hard time. So that's mine. I don't read. I don't have anything there to read. If I go into past an hour, I'll let myself read, but I don't read as part of my practice. Just try to be empty like a satellite dish. Like Emily Dickinson writes, the only news I know is bulletins all day from immortality. So I perceive of myself as a receiver of bulletins. And that's what it comes like, you know. This whole book, No Ordinary Time, practically wrote itself right from that practice. It's like this practice causes thoughts to take shape that become the creations that define my life. That's what it feels like. No work, no effort. I don't strive for anything.
So I'm kind of getting it as we are reaction and action,
That's a good way of putting it.
that we react to our, and we also are the action.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. You know, those are two poles. Those are two kind of opposites, maybe. And so the point is, what happens when two opposite things come together is sparks fly, right? And those, it's like sperm and egg, a new child, right? Masculine, feminine, new life. So when that new life comes, that's beyond the duality. This is the realm of the absolute, where there's only the one. And we're stuck down here in a reality of duality, where those divisions keep us apart. So intellectually and spiritually, the work, that's why they say the quality of true genius is the ability to hold two contradictory thoughts at the same time in your mind without losing your mind. I make a case for Donald Trump every day. I make a case for him. I try to connect, to repair the opposites. Yep.
How would you reconcile your faith and your sexuality?
Well, I got denied absolution from a priest and said I can't receive the sacraments anymore unless I stop being gay. And so that decision caused me to let go of the church and become a priest and a prophet myself. So the world became my altar. I know to love myself because I see the love I am. So then the problem is not me. The problem is that church. But I did go to announce that I was boycotting the church from that point forward. It took me 10 years because I got how disavowed, or whatever the word would be, refused absolution in 1970. And it took me until 1980-something to go to the chancery, to set up an appointment with a priest, and to say, for the record, Father, you've lost a really good one here, and this is why. You know, I'm never coming back. I'm not interested in this church anymore. It's full of injustice. And that you had a prophetic woman in your presence and you'd done wrong by her is a very bad, sad thing for the church this day. So I took an opportunity to, like, not just run away, but to say to the church, you're losing us. You're losing us. It's a terrible loss. But never expecting change in my time. We're trying to get, the bishop won't even acknowledge in this diocese, won't even refer. If a gay family calls up and says, my teenage kid is gay or transgendered, the bishop won't even say, there's a great group. Here's the number. He won't even refer out. That's injustice. You got suicides on your hands when you act like that. So, you know, to not collude is a matter of conscience for me. But the other thing we said about that was, the building is burning. There are people shooting fire hoses from the outside, but there are also people inside that burning building trying to save things from the inside. They're working for justice from within that institution, and I am working for justice from outside the institution. Both are equally valid. One is harder than the other. The inside the burning building is harder than having the fire hose. And there's a lot of people here working inside, and all I can do is give them a standing ovation. My mic is off?
One more question.
Oh, okay, one more question.
I found that my spiritual journey became easier when I started living or trying to live the concept of namaste. The divine and sacred in me acknowledges and honors the sacred and divine in you. And when you're acknowledging the sacred in another person, it's very hard to be judgmental. You can mourn their lack of knowledge of that sacredness in them, but you honor the sacredness of everyone. And trying to live that has made my spiritual journey easier.
That's a great way to go. Namaste, it's a kind of a Hindu, Buddhist, it's a Buddhist tradition, I think. The sacred in me honors the sacred in you. It's like all over Nepal, Namaste. Nepal, India, Thailand. It's beautiful. Okay, is it cookies time? Cookies and buying. We're having the merchants in the temple out there.
Yeah, let's join us for refreshments and some time to get out.
Thank you, Steve. What? Let me out first? I got this thing taped to my head. Just, yeah, you can.